for the show, Bob Irwin. We are broadcasting from the gun store at 2900 East Tropicana. We are a program on the internet, on YouTube, and on KDWN Talk Radio. We're dedicated to guns, gun laws, gun rights, self-defense issues. We encourage comments or questions if you have them, because we're on the radio and on YouTube simultaneously. Because of the few second differentials between both, we cannot take live calls on the show at the moment. We're working on that. If you have a question or comment, you can send it in by email or text to the sign up above my comrade's head here, bob@firedupmail.com. We always have an attorney on show to address the legal issues, which there are a lot of. Tonight, again, we have one of my regular panelists, murder defense specialist Clark Patrick. Welcome to the show, Clark.
Thanks, Bob. It's good to be back.
A little bit of your gun background for
Sure.
people.
As most listeners know, I grew up in Montana, longtime hunter, always around guns ever since a young age. Spent some time in the Army playing with their guns. And for the last 10 years, I have been doing solely murder defense work in Clark County.
An interesting job.
It is.
And we also have Sandra Eifelt from CCS Gunsmithing, the boss over there. Also a big advocate for the NRA, does a lot of work for the NRA dinners and stuff we're going to talk about later on in the show also. So I wanted to have Sandra on the show. She's a well-known local advocate for gun rights. Welcome to the show, dear.
Thank you for welcoming me. I have been with CCS Guns for 30 years. Chris and I have been married for quite some time now. We do full-service gunsmithing. We also do multi-tapping, cape coating, and different things. We do recommend certain places for people to go when they need gun training. And I work close with the NRA, and I'm quite happy with it.
A real advocate for gun rights here in Southern Nevada. You've been around guns at any time in Southern Nevada for any amount of time, you have run into Sandra and her lovely husband, Chris, who is sitting off camera here glaring at us. So anyway, we always start out with a kind of a viewer question of the week. And when you send in a note to that bob@firedupmail.com, we will answer your questions always by email or text back to you. The questions that seem to be common for that particular week, at least, we will try and answer on the air. One of the things that came up this week when some of our revered president said some things about not being able in this term or last term to close the gun show loophole, and several people that aren't gun advocates but just watching the show want to know, well, what's wrong with doing the background checks at gun shows? Won't that close the gun show loophole? And the real answer to that is there is no gun show loophole. Here in Southern Nevada, and virtually every gun show in the United States requires, if you leave the gun show with a gun that you didn't come in with, they stop you and make you do a Brady background check on the way out the door, or you don't leave with a gun. The illegal sales that are taking place in the parking lot, not people coming into the show, because they all get background checks unless they're an FFL dealer that's leaving with a different gun, or they are in fact have bought the gun and got the slip for their background check, and all the shows do background checks. The reality of people trying to avoid background checks is not because they're going to commit a criminal act. The reality of people avoiding background checks, buying from private parties, using the supposed loophole that doesn't exist at gun shows, is they don't want their name on a government list of who owns a gun. And it's none of the government's damn business who owns a gun, and they don't want to be on the list because things happen with that list sooner or later. And there's been several jurisdictions that people wish they were not on the list of who owns a gun. And we're getting another one right about this time in the city of Los Angeles. We'll talk about in just a little bit. as I said, we are simulcast on the internet, on YouTube at Fired Up with Bob Irwin, and here on KDWN News Talk Radio, the home of Fired Up. We've been on the radio for 6 or 7 years now, it seems. I think it's only 4, but it seems longer. As far as firearms for self-defense, which is the gist of the show, there are roughly 200 cases each week of people using guns for self-defense that we know of. We only get the ones that the police reports are made or they're in the papers or something. It's probably a good deal higher than that, but we always want to go over a couple of shooting cases for our viewers' education as to what happened. Some are good, some are bad, some are questionable. And I'm going to go a little off of sequence here because the way I laid out the outline, I want to start out with one that's kind of in the news right now. And I think for our outline guys, it is, it's on page 5. This is from the Daily Camera in Boulder, Colorado. What we basically had here was a drunk, enraged, estranged husband caught his estranged wife coming out from church where she works and prays. She was in the parking lot and just before 6 p.m. and walking to her car, and the guy, the soon-to-be ex, ran up, grabbed her in a headlock, put a knife at her throat, screaming he was going to cut her head off. There was an employee of the church there, 41-year-old man, who saw that as he was leaving. What was going on? He knew the woman because he sees her at the church all the time, and knew who her husband was because they've had problems with him before. He intervened. He has a permit to carry a concealed weapon. He drew his gun, pointed it at the guy, told him to leave her alone. Seeing the weapon, the guy fled. He was captured sometime later by the police. However, he was so combative they had to tase him to get him into custody. He's arrested now on first-degree murder charges and assault with a deadly weapon and felony menacing ad infinitum. There's about 40 crimes in there if you go over all of them. She was rushed to Boulder Community Health Hospital for emergency surgery. She had been stabbed in the abdomen already. The good thing here was we had a guy who was armed, who was able to jump in. He didn't shoot anybody. It's perfect self-defense. I want to quote an interview by the Boulder County Sheriff. He said, permitted gun owners like the man who intervened have often expressed to him the desire to feel protected in church. He said, I've talked to a number of permit holders, and some of them have said it's specifically that they want to carry a gun in church because there have been attacks on churches a lot. The problem is, for Colorado, there is no prohibition against carrying a gun in a church, which is nice, so they can carry. This particular county sheriff has issued more than 6,000 concealed carry permits. He sees no problem with a person carrying a gun in church if they have been trained to know what they're doing, unless you put metal detectors in front of churches and so forth. It won't work otherwise. It's a wonderful case because everything came out fine. The lady's going to be okay. They thought she was in critical, but she's surviving. She expects to be out of the hospital shortly. This is a perfect case. Third-party defenses we've talked about a lot on the air, and they're normally tough. In this case, the guy knew both parties and knew what was going on.
Well, no, yeah, they're tough because you don't know the story behind what's going on. It could be just two friends playing or fighting. But in this case, not only did he know the people that helped, but also that he didn't shoot the guy, which also helped because he scared him off. He stopped the attack just by showing that he had a firearm. And a lot of the self-defense cases that we do talk about, you don't have to shoot to perfect self-defense. So between the fact that he knew what was going on and the fact that he did not shoot the guy makes this a very simple case.
Yeah, he's not going to be in any trouble. He didn't violate any laws in Colorado. One would suspect, I mean, even if there is a lawsuit, and lawsuits are a fact of life, when you point your gun at somebody, there is some attorney out there who will go, oh, my client was so, now he's having nightmares because he's seeing himself being shot. Those happen. There is not a winnable case here.
No,
So
there's
the guy's just going to be wasting his money or his family if they go through this. But perfect case. This type of thing happens all the time here in Las Vegas. I'm going to go on to this next, as long as we got to that page. I want to talk about another kind of a odd case. This is from CBC, which is a major news network in Canada, from the 31st of last month. They reported the case, is where I pulled it, but this actually happened in Texas. A Texas guy was wounded after firing his gun at an armadillo that was in his yard. The bullet apparently ricocheted back and hit him in the face, according to the Cass County Sheriff. The man, who was not identified, went outside his home in Marietta, Texas at 3 a.m., spotted an armadillo on his property, got his .38 revolver, and came back out and shot 3 rounds at the armadillo. I'm not going to be an animal rights activist as to why you should shoot an armadillo. I don't know that they're harmful, but anyway, he shot at it. However, revenge here. The animal's shell deflected at least one of the bullets, which returned and struck the man in the jaw. He was airlifted to a nearby hospital where his jaw was wired shut. So he'll remember this for a while. The animal apparently escaped the scene, and its status is unknown. Now, normally I wouldn't bring up, because this is a real isolated thing, but USA Today also reported 3 months ago that an armadillo got some payback from a guy who was out target shooting in Georgia. The Georgia man was firing a 9mm at an armadillo. The bullet careened off the armadillo, hit a fence, went through the back door of the guy's house, hitting his mother in the back through her rocking chair that she was sitting in. So she suffered some non-life-threatening injuries. The armadillo was pronounced dead at the scene. There's a well-known comedian named Ricky Gervais who has put these two together and is calling it Carmadillo. Now, those of you who have watched television like I have, there is a new show based on James Patterson's science fiction book called Zoo, where the animals are suddenly getting cognizant and attacking humans.
great show.
And so forth. But in view of these two stories, could this be really happening?
It could be. They could have just purposely angled their shells so that the bullet ricocheted.
Armadillos have learned to deflect
how to
bullets.
deflect the bullets. So the moral of the story is, if you're going after armadillos,
No.
you better be packing something bigger than a 38 or a 9.
You don't, you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm just, I was a little concerned when I saw these were put together, and you may laugh now, Sandra, but if there's another one of these in another 3 or 4 months where an armadillo basically tries to take out a human being, you know,
Yeah.
we'll be laughing from the other side of your mouth.
Pack heavier when you're shooting armadillos in the backyard.
I would strongly recommend rifles.
Yeah,
This
that's what I'm thinking.
this could be a pattern.
There's a lesson to be learned.
It
Do
is.
not shoot at a armadillo.
Well, it would seem so. I've seen a lot of people hit by rocks that fired the bullet back toward them, but we're dealing. This could be a conspiracy. Yeah.
I agree. I think it is.
I want to remind listeners that we offer free concealed carry permit classes every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday here at the gun store. You can find information about that on our website here at www.thegunstorelasvegas.com. I want to bring up also a case from today or yesterday, day before yesterday, here in Las Vegas. We had a self-defense shooting, apparently. This was called my attention because this is about 6 blocks from where we're sitting right now that this took place. A would-be robber was shot and later died at the hospital after an attempted robbery of what turned out to be a concealed carry permit carrying citizen. Metro Police, the local police department, received a call of a shooting about 9:30 in the evening 2 days ago at Spencer and Tropicana at the Newport Cove Apartments. A man and a woman who reside in the complex were sitting outside watching the sunset in the evening. If you're not seeing this in Las Vegas, it's been hotter than blazes here, and the only time you can get out of the house without dying of heat stroke is 9 o'clock at night. They're sitting outside. 3 men approached the couple. One was armed with a handgun, at least one was armed with a handgun. Tried to take the woman's purse. The male, one of the lead male that was carrying the gun, tried to grab the purse from the woman while he's holding the gun on her. The male that was with her pulled out his CCW gun, which he had with him, and shot one of the robbers. The other 2 men fled the scene. Witnesses at the scene confirmed what happened, the sequence of events. Police responded, of course. The wounded robber was rushed over to Sunrise Hospital over here, where he was pronounced dead. The weapon belonging to the suspect, believed to be his gun, was recovered at the scene. He apparently dropped it when he was hit. The suspects, the other 2 are still on the loose, described as 2 men in their late teens, early 20s, wearing dark clothing. We'll be on the lookout for them. The incident remains under investigation. This is a case of another armed citizen being able to thwart an attack because he had his gun handy. I got a couple of interviews on local Channel 5 over this, and that was the whole point of this case. We have people come into class that say, on their renewal, and they say, well, I've been having the gun for 5 years, but I only carry it sometimes because I don't need it. And you never know when you're going to be attacked. You can't plan on that. This guy had the sense to have his gun with him.
Yep.
And practicing that is huge.
Yes.
I'm sure, Sandra, you've seen women come into your store that have a
time.
gun in their purse and
Yes.
can't find it when they're looking for it.
Yeah.
The
Or they
gun,
decide that particular day they've changed handbags and they got the gun laying on the couch. What good is your gun if it's going to be laying on the couch? The bad guy's not laying on the couch. He's trying to get in your car.
exactly the point that we're probably running 20% of our concealed weapon classes now are women, and women are buying more and more and more guns. And it isn't just buying the gun. You have to get some training you can work it.
Yep.
And we so encourage people when they have a gun to practice when they come in the range, or anybody's range. Our range is better here at the gun store, but anybody's range. And practice the way you carry it.
Yeah.
If it's in your purse, see, when the buzzer goes off and you're looking at a target standing at 3 feet, see if you can get the gun out of your purse and get it pointed. And if you can't, maybe you need a purse with a holster built in so the gun doesn't go into the bottom or whatever. There's lots of things made, but most of it is just practice.
Practice.
Having to get your gun out and be able to fire. This guy obviously did, because he's facing the gun, was able to draw and fire before the guy fired, which is perfect. Whoever you are, person unnamed by the Metro Police Department, congratulations. Come in and I'll give you a free bullet to replace the one you used up.
Yeah.
The we were discussing. I want to go on to one other thing here also before we get too far into the show. I continue on these shows. They're only an hour-long show. We're going to hit a news break here in about 5 minutes, and we're going to run out of time because there's so many. My internet search engine is filled with cases and things that are going on, and a couple things I wanted to bring up. Last week we talked a bit about the Marine who fired in self-defense with his own gun in Chattanooga, and there was questions whether the Navy or the FBI was going to charge him with the crime. Yesterday it came out early this morning that the Navy has decided they will not prosecute him. Great idea. It was against the rules for him to have his private gun on Navy property, whatever. They've decided that they won't prosecute him. I thought this was a great chance for our fearless leader, the president, to offer immediately a presidential pardon before the investigation even went anywhere, but he didn't. We're under attack by Muslim terrorists until the president can say the word Muslim terrorists. Nothing really is going to happen there. Following that shooting, however, we did have some interesting changes. The NRA did a follow-up, and a whole list of presidential candidates, Bush and Cruz and Farina and Mike Huckabee and Trump and Scott Walker, Jim Webb, came out and said that they would do something if they were president to change the rules that the military could carry their guns if they chose to wherever they were stationed, even if it was inside the United States. A couple of the governors, Arkansas, Florida, Indiana, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Texas, all have directed their National Guard troops to carry their guns when they're on duty, period. But
good.
The federal government hasn't moved into that. Where's the story? The other big story was Los Angeles City. We talked last week about, I guess I just have it on the extra sheet. We talked no, it's in here somewhere. Anyway, we'll look for it. This is live TV. Obviously, I'm a professional at this. So we're going to go to South Bend. Well, I don't know what to do with it. But anyway, we have the LA City Council determined to start a bill that says for the city of Los Angeles, no one can have in their possession a magazine that holds more than 10 shots. There were a couple of drafts of this. The first draft said you can't have a gun that holds 10 shots, but then they realized the magazines hold 10, so they changed the wording to just be the magazines. That was signed yesterday morning by the mayor. We announced last week it was in the hopper, and the bill was signed. It is effective in 60 days. And what it does is now that the date works out, if they counted weekends, to November 7th. There will be no such thing in the city of Los Angeles as a legally owned magazine that holds more than 10 shots. It is a misdemeanor crime. So people that own those in Los Angeles City, there's only Los Angeles City. San Francisco had the same law, so does Sunnyvale up next to San Francisco. This is new. Are going to become criminals on November 7th if they still have that high capacity magazine, or what we call standard capacity magazine, in their possession. It's ordinance council file numbers 13-0068. If you want to look it up, you live in Los Angeles. Bars possession of any magazine. Nothing is grandfathered. Law enforcement's exempt and so forth. But if you have a magazine that you can put more than 10 rounds in, that will become a misdemeanor in the city of Los Angeles. And the problem becomes, what do you do?
Yes. Well, you can always use it to store your medical marijuana. If you can't put 10 rounds in it, you can put your medical marijuana in it.
Yes.
Would that be a good defense? It was full of marijuana, so I couldn't put the shells in?
I would think so. I'd give it a shot anyway.
I think we're about to hit a break. Is that there's a lot of discussion over this. I have been interviewing this last week my concealed weapon classes, disrupting the classes by explaining this. Okay, we'll talk about that. Well, that's good. We can talk about that after the break. We're going to hit news on KDON. So we will be back in about 2 or 3 minutes on the internet. We're staying on. So for the radio guys, we'll be right back. Don't go away. Now we're just on the internet, correct? Good. So I can drink my coffee, look like a human. You can scratch your ear. Drink your soda. This. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the what the people think after the break, because I did talk to about 90 people that are gun nuts about this, and that were trapped in my classroom and had to answer questions. But they made exemptions in the bill for movie companies, which is nice because they'd all be gone. You can't make a movie in Los Angeles anymore if you have to have the bad guy firing 40 rounds, then you're out of luck. So they exempted them. They exempted gunsmiths. I have no idea why. Other than one of the things you're allowed to do is turn the magazines in to an FFL dealer. Okay. I presume for sale to law enforcement, because law enforcement's exempted. It isn't clear in what I've seen on the bill whether they're exempted off duty, which may prove interesting. One of the arguments for this bill was that police shouldn't have more than 10 shots either, because of Dorner, the LA cop that went rogue and killed a couple other cops and things. He legally had high capacity magazines. Yeah. Oh my God. Well, so we ought to take all the magazines away from all the other cops too, right?
Sure. Because they're so hard to come by otherwise, if you're going to go do something like Dorner did.
And the city attorney says that this is this is actually the third generation of writing this ordinance. The others the first two were challenged by the NRA and of course all the California gun rights people. But they've rewritten this so that it only is the magazines. They had it written if you had a gun capable of holding the magazine, kind of thing. And that went away because every gun that takes a magazine is capable of holding. Even if there wasn't one available in commerce, you could actually make one. So it's the magazines are what's going to reduce their crime rate, apparently. So they took the guns out and it left just the magazines themselves. And according to the city attorney, we have considered the possibility that the ordinance might be challenged on the grounds that it's preempted by state law and violates the Second Amendment. However, we believe the ordinance is legally defensible on both grounds. What he's apparently going to say is the Second Amendment doesn't say anything about magazines.
Right.
They're not outlawing guns. The state preemption, where it says California state can only make gun restrictions, they're not restricting the guns.
No.
Just the magazines.
Just part of the gun.
The interesting thing is, the gun rights people should get one of the professional 3-gun shooters and take him out to the range with the city council and give him 1 30-round magazine and 3 10-round magazines and see how long it takes him to empty both. And I bet there's not that much difference between somebody that knows what they're doing and does it, switching out 3 10-round magazines for 1 30-round magazines and the number of bullets they get off in the same time frame.
And we are back, I think. We're not yet. Well, we're almost back. And for you guys on YouTube, we haven't left.
Welcome back. Bob Irwin, fired up.
We are back. We were talking about this magazine ban in Los Angeles, some of the technical stuff about who's exempted and law enforcement is exempted and so on. But the real guts of this, obviously, is the actual people. We have on our concealed weapon classes here, we have 30 people every day we have the class. So we had 90 a week, give or take. And it's a mix of people who are here because they like guns and they want to own 10 guns and whatever. But the bulk of them are people who just buy a gun because they want to have one in the house or get a permit to carry. And they're not gun fanatics. They're just folks. So anyway, the last 3 classes, so we're talking about 90 people here. I presented this to them, much to the annoyance of the instructor trying to teach the class, and I'm butting Insky, but explained this to them, and I said, now, if this bill becomes law, because this just happened yesterday, would you, if your city did this, would you comply? And before you say that you would or wouldn't, understand it becomes a misdemeanor crime. You got $1,000 and possibly a year in prison. Certainly, it's going to be some kind of a gun crime under LA City Code. So it may restrict your ability to buy another gun. It may restrict your ability to get a concealed carry permit because you've committed a gun violation. We don't have all the fallout from this yet. If you own a gun that takes standard magazines, and they're all registered in California, because you all register all your guns in California. We know that because that's the law. So when the police compare list A to list B, they're going to come around and go, hi, let me see your magazines or something. Are you going to comply? Are you going to hide your magazine so you have a high capacity magazine if somebody breaks into your house or whatever? Understanding that the downside is if you use that magazine and now it's in evidence in the court, they're going to charge you with another crime. Mm-hmm. Probably, knowing LA, more than likely.
And kind of going back to the other thing that you were saying earlier about, even though it's a good self-defense shooting, there's always going to be a lawsuit. Well, the person that's suing you over the good self-defense is going to say, oh, look, he had an illegal magazine.
An illegal murderous magazine only used by mass shooters. And
exactly.
You can hear it already. And
yes.
So the idea was then to ask them, explain that there is, this is not just gun rights yelling. It's almost as good to have 3 10-shot magazines as 1 30-shot magazine. Would you risk all this stuff to keep your high capacity or standard capacity magazines? And I got about 20% that said yes, they would comply because the gain is not worth the penalty. Right. And they're not being anti-gun, they're just being people who don't want to get smashed by the government over some 2-bit thing. The other 80% said, no, I would, to hell with them, I would hide the magazine and not tell them. And if I needed it, I'll go to court. Well, no.
Right.
Comment there.
Yeah. And especially in a state like California and a city like Los Angeles, they're looking for people to make examples out of. Yeah. And the first few that they catch with this, they're going to probably throw the book at to get the word out that they're serious about it.
They very likely are. And, being charged with even a misdemeanor, now you're going to want to keep your guns, right? So, and you don't want to be found guilty because then maybe the guy you shot will use that as leverage. The guy committed a crime. He's already been convicted. Of course I should win my lawsuit, right?
And I say, why fight it? Because you're going to get charged with a crime. And then eventually they're going to say, you committed that crime, so we can take your gun from you.
That's coming down.
That's what I see in the long run, that this is a trap, actually. They have gotten already where this has happened, where we have, in particular New York State, where they write down all their numbers and keep track of everything. They estimate there's 300,000 felons in New York State that didn't turn in their high-capacity magazines or register their assault rifles and so on. We're going to create here in Los Angeles, assuming that the survey I got is roughly correct, there's got to be 400,000 or 500,000 people in Los Angeles that own a high-capacity magazine for something. This is ARs and everything. This ain't pistols, guys. This is any magazine that holds more than 10 shots for anything. So all you guys with your registered ARs and Mini 14s and whatever, that M1 carbines, the state knows who owns those. They're going to look at this. The LA guys are going to look at this and go, well, we got 17 guys on this one block that own AR-15s. And I wonder if they got rid of all their high-cap magazines. Now, Clark, I know we're talking California law here, can the police get a warrant to go fishing for magazines if they know the guy has a gun that takes those magazines?
Depends on the judge.
Now,
Yeah,
already
exactly right.
California, you can't have more than 10 shots in your magazine by state law. So if you registered your assault rifle, then you've told them you have it, and you've told them you don't have any magazines that aren't grandfathered.
They said grandfather wasn't part of the program.
These aren't grandfathered, right? All the grandfather magazines are gone also.
Yeah,
So,
you get the right judge, they'll sign search warrants for that. And they can say probable causes they had this grandfathered magazine that's no longer grandfathered, so we need to go check and see if he still got it.
yeah. As far as I know, they weren't counting the magazines. They were just grandfathered, and they didn't matter.
But think about the stores that have their inspection every 2 years. They are making lists. They come in and they are looking at everything.
And especially in California, they're looking
That's
at,
what I'm
at
saying.
everything.
So
they know
basically,
everything about every one of
yes.
you. So
While they checking, they also see.
So everybody in California with your high capacity magazines, bring them over to the gun store, and we'll all get really good deals on a bunch because they're still good here in Nevada.
I suggested that to the 90 people I was talking to, and it didn't go over really well. But there's a difficulty. What is there? No 10 run. Oh. I was just asked off camera. There is a question in this law that says, and I didn't mention in the outline, if you're one of these people that has some old weird gun that nobody else has, like my engineer, and there are no magazines that only hold 10 shots for it, you can still have those. If magazines that hold 10 are not available in commerce, the only magazine there is a 12-shot magazine, the factory one, and nobody makes magazines for a Gazuzitz gun they made in Austria in 1912. You're allowed to keep that magazine. It has to be registered with these guys. You have to have the gun in the magazine as in it. But it's going to be interesting to see what the details are on that, because you're looking at 150 pages of legal bullshit to get this down to whatever it's going to say. I didn't say that on the air. I said BS. Hope you're listening, Clyde. You got to beep that. In 20 seconds, part of what I just said will not go out over the radio station.
Well, we need to get a case of those guns and take them to California and start selling them for about 3 times face value.
Yeah, but you can't import. You got state law. You can't import any new ones.
I think you stop and think. The people probably are going to start going around asking the gunsmiths to put a spacer in there so that make it legal.
Right.
Yeah,
And
but
what are the laws against that?
it's against the law.
That's right.
Yeah, they can't be repaired.
Nope.
Your gunsmith can fix them if
But
they're
he cannot
broken, but
modify
he
it.
can't make it a 10 shot out of what was a 12 shot. Because if he can do that, then it can always be done the other way.
That's right.
So but the magazine itself will be illegal on November 7th.
Yep.
So you walk into the gunsmith with it, he's going to go,
Can't touch it.
bye. You know, you were never here,
That's right.
and you weren't on that camera right there, so don't yell at me. You know, this is going to be an incredible upheaval in Los Angeles.
Well,
I said it may not stop any mass shootings,
let me
but
tell you
it'll
something.
certainly create a lot of criminals.
I have one thing to say. Now, you know, California has always been the test ground for everything.
Yep.
That was the test ground for you can't wear perfume to work, remember? And that went nationwide. And then there was a test ground that you cannot smoke in public places.
Right.
And then that went nationwide. So this is the test ground because they have all these people there that have these things, and their law says to get their gun approved, it's 15 days waiting. It's a test
Yep.
ground.
And bear in mind on this magazine thing, I know there are going to be legal challenges to it, but what their DA said, their county and city attorney, is probably correct. Is they're attacking the magazines, and bear in mind they're already San Francisco and Sunnyvale, and one other little town up in that same area that have outlawed possession of magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, and it's been upheld in the court, in the higher court levels, as not an infringement on the Second Amendment.
Right.
And it obviously is, but it's not an infringement on the state law in California.
Right.
The preemption law, they've held that the cities and towns can make more restrictive ordinance. They can't make less restrictive ordinance. That's what it really means.
Yeah.
Our one in Nevada means the other way around.
Yeah.
Right.
But they're, you know, you got the California courts elected by the California voters. I'm sorry, guys, but you got more left-wing voters who think guns are all bad and whatever. Before we run out of time, we got several more cases as usual. I want to address the NRA dinner, August 22nd, Texas Station. Big fundraiser for the NRA. Saturday night,
5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Doors open.
Tickets are available.
Tickets are available at, I have some tickets, not actual tickets. I have some brochures that you can fill out and mail in at CCS Guns.
Okay.
So they are on the counter.
I
And
didn't know whether you had tickets yourself or not.
no, we
this
didn't
year.
get tickets. We only got the flyers.
Okay.
And the tickets are $75.
And that comes with a bunch of drawing tickets, and
Bunch
they're
of
giving
drawing
away
tickets.
more guns
Good
than
food.
you can shake
And
a
usually the
format.
banquets, our banquet, we gave away at least 40 guns. So I know they probably be about 40, 50 guns somewhere and be given away.
Yeah, there is a number you can call. It shows as a local number. It's the NRA office for Nevada in California. If you want to write it down, but you can call CCS to get this if you don't get it. It's 702-308. You remember that so far? 702 and 308 0252. That's the NRA rep for Nevada, who's based out of California, and they'll do credit cards and whatever and get you all the tickets you need.
Well, you know, this year we have a new rep.
Yeah.
We have Steve Wilson, and Steve is now resident of Nevada.
Oh,
up
is he?
in
But he's in the north end. Yeah.
in North End. But he is our rep for this whole state. We no longer have our old rep that was in California.
And he's up where the politicians are, not where all the gun owners are. So
Okay.
we'll talk
We'll
about
talk.
it. We've got a gun show coming up, Crossroads of the West at Cashman, the end of this month, August 29 and 30. We will be there selling our range brass, and we'll have one of our attorneys there, no doubt, at least on Saturday, to chat with you about questions you don't want to write in at Fired Up Mail, Bob at firedupmail.com. We get questions on things that, you know, I got this old gun from my cousin and I think it's illegal. And we can answer all that stuff face to face. Obviously, we can't advise you to break the law, but we will tell you where you stand in any case with it. And, you know, a lot of times we have ended up giving you advice of at 3 a.m. drive to the Pacific Ocean. No, because you got to go across California. Drive to the dam and throw it over, and you know, forget about it. You know, because it's not worth it. I can't imagine how much this is going to happen in California now.
That's scary.
Mhm.
The 1st of November is when this is going to really hit. That they've got to get rid of it.
Well, you know why? The election is coming up in November.
Yeah, well, that's good. The timing on this is great as far as the election. It's, this is happening while
You know
the
how sneaky
Democrats can
things
still get in
happen.
trouble.
You know, yeah.
Anyway, Crossroads is at the 29th and 30th, and right after that, the next weekend in September 5th and 6th, South Point has the Rocky Mountain Show. We're going to have tickets for these events also on the air. I'll talk about that next week, where you can get some free tickets. We got some passes to give away for a couple of these shows. As you all know, we've discontinued the television version of Fired Up, and what we're stumbling through here is about to replace it. And next week, we're here again from 6 to 7 on News Talk Radio, KDON 720, with defense attorney Andy Lumen. Andy is a murder specialist also, who's
Yes, she
a
is.
lot better looking than you are.
Yeah.
I mean, don't take that personally, but. And we're going to have with us next week also, we're going to have homicide detective Phil Ramos, who will delve into some of these things from police perspective and so forth. Now, let me see what else I missed here. I always got to get the end stuff done first. We talked about the Navy officer. He's okay now. And we're going to do that after on the next half hour. The next half hour, when we go off the radio, we're going to be talking about an interesting government attack that's coming on your ability to buy guns on a backsided sort of way. The government has got a program proposed that they can get, as a condition of their contract to sell to the military, they can demand that the manufacturing company doesn't sell guns to civilians.
Wow.
So if you win the government contract for Beretta pistols or whatever,
Hmm.
part of the deal is going to be you can't then sell to civilians.
That
To
gun or
eliminate-
any gun?
That particular.
That particular gun,
Okay.
apparently. So, that'll be AR-15s and
Right.
military handguns and so forth. So anyway, let me go back to the top of the show. Oh, good. I got about time to do that. This is from Petros, Tennessee. It was just the tail end of July. Morgan County Police Chief said a shooting happened early Tuesday morning. A resident shot 2 intruders at 2:30 a.m. when he heard them trying to enter the bedroom of his house. The resident is a retired Oak Ridge Laboratories security guard. Oak Ridge Laboratories is a nuclear facility. This is a real, not a mall cop.
Right.
Heard someone coming in. He got his .38 revolver, which he keeps near the bed where he can reach it in a hurry. When he opened the door, his bedroom door, they were standing right on the other side of the door. They were just about to break it in. The authorities didn't divulge how many shots he fired. The intruders did not wake him when he entered the house, only when they reached the bedroom door, apparently. The investigators are still piecing together what happened. There was a physical confrontation. The resident in the doorway shot a local 18-year-old and a 17-year-old that was with them, hitting both of them once. Neither intruder ran after being shot. They were found by responding officers right where they were inside the house. The resident did not know the intruders. He called 911 to report the shootings. The neighbors hearing gunshots had come over to his aid, which is nice. The two were taken to University of Tennessee Medical Center. Both had surgery and they're now in stable condition with charges pending. No charges are expected against the elderly resident. He is well known in the neighborhood. He said he hated to do it, but he was protecting himself, said a neighbor. He's an elderly gentleman. So he did whatever he had to do to protect himself. And the neighbor said, I hope this would deter other people from such actions, which is interesting because it won't.
No.
because there is no 17-year-old or 18-year-old burglar who ever reads the paper.
No.
Even
Okay.
if they did, it's not going to stop them from doing something like this.
It's not going to sink in. They're
Yeah.
in this guy's house. He's 79 years old. For criminy sakes, and they're in the house, and he opens the door, and there they are, and came at him, and he fired at them both, hit them both.
Good
Good
Fortunately,
shot. Yeah, good for him.
he's very happy that he didn't kill him, because nobody wants to go through that. You kill a 17, 18-year-old. We're seeing that all the time now, and the family made so he was turning his life around. When he got off parole, he was going to quit selling drugs, and all the crap you hear. He was starting college tomorrow. And,
Next week he was going to college.
other than these 17
He's a good
felonies,
boy.
but they were as a juvenile, and now he's grown up
He's a good boy.
without the grin.
Okay.
There, if you saw it today, they're still doing the protests in Ferguson
Yes, they
Yes,
are.
there.
about the white officer who shot the unarmed teenage child who was a 300-pounder at 6'7".
6'7".
Every agency, the locals, the both courts, federal or local, criminal and civil, and the Justice Department found the officer acted absolutely correctly,
They still don't.
and they're still having marches about
Right.
this poor
Won't
young
give it
kid
up.
who was
Don't give
killed.
it up.
He was attacking a police officer. Anyway, so don't break into houses of old guys who used to guard nuclear sites.
Right.
They shoot you. We had another guy apparently recently. I didn't put it in here because it's getting redundant, but another guy pointing an air gun at a police officer somewhere here on the West Coast or in California and got shot. Don't point guns at policemen.
Even if it looks like a gun, don't point it at
Right.
anybody.
Yeah. This is a shooting in South Bend, and it's a complicated case where a guy was in his house. He got home. He found there were burglars upstairs. He went up the stairs with his gun. They got into a wrestling match. He falls down the stairs. He's got his gun. He pulled the guy with him when the guy pushed him down the stairs. Another guy. The intruder was 45 years old. The homeowner was 51 or something. They're in a physical fight going down the stairs. He shot the guy. When he got reoriented and called 911, he thought the guy had run away because he didn't see him anywhere. And so he called police, and they came and whatever. And when they came, they found the guy laying dead in the house. That he missed him. He didn't realize that he had actually killed him. He just didn't see him. But the interesting part of this,
We call that
Okay.
blind shot.
Yep.
Huh?
We'll call that blind shot.
yeah,
Okay.
but he did interviews with the press about what happened. He did interviews with the police, and the police said to him, and I'm not being anti-police, but when we talk to you about you're involved in a shooting, you're going to be all wound up, don't talk.
Yeah, I was looking at this very thing. He said the resident was still in pain and still pretty rattled when he gave an interview. No. Do not give an interview especially to the media.
Anybody.
He just
and
fallen down the
nor
stairs.
to
He
the
was
police.
banged in the head.
What you tell them is, I want my lawyer, and then I will give you a full statement after I have a chance to consult with counsel.
The detective said to him, "It looks good to us. You're not in any trouble." So what
Doesn't
happened?
matter.
And the guy said that. The people who shoot people still believe that when the officer says, "You're not in any trouble.
Yeah,
Just tell
no.
us what happened."
Do not believe that.
There's a dead body in your house.
Yeah.
You're in
That's
trouble.
No,
And never talk to the press.
ever.
They're not going to be on your jury. We are winding up here. We're going to be off the radio here in about a minute. I'm getting the go away sign. If you want to listen to the rest of this, flip your computer, your iPhone, or whatever onto YouTube and click in Fired Up with Bob Irwin, and you will get the next 20 minutes or so when we talk about this new problem with military procurement. Thanks for listening. the wave was for the people that can't see the wave. We're staying here. We are off radio. Okay. Now we can say bad words. You know those 7 words you can't say? You can say them all now, but don't. It's rude.
That's really.
There. Oh, let me go back to this thing. I talked about it a little bit already, and this is really scary. The government will. This was a piece in the New York Times, and it was carried by Ammoland. I've got like a page and a half of it here in notes, but basically what's going on here is there's a proposal from a group representing manufacturers, and they're called the Metro Industrial Areas Foundation. And their aim, they say, as a group, is to building power for social change. Though there's a good thing for them to want. They've encouraged President Obama to inject gun control policies in the federal firearms acquisition procedures. What they want to do is the government to exercise the federal government's purchasing power to reward firearms manufacturers who acquiesce to voluntary gun control measures in dealing with civilian gun owners. In other words, they punish those who refuse to curb Americans' gun rights. The idea basically here is that when they get a contract to sell M16s to the government, they sign an agreement that they will not market AR-15s or parts for those into the civilian market. And therefore they get points on their contract that they're a government-friendly manufacturer. So it appears to me when you see the bidding happen, and now we've got bids coming in from the Army rejected Beretta's bid for continuing their service pistol, without even having tests. They just said, no, we don't want the improved now M5 or Beretta 92. They just don't want it. No tests were done. They want to go to a Glock or something else that is more modern, whatever type gun, plastic, I guess, which is fine, but they didn't even let Beretta do the test after supplying guns for all these years. It seems that was like really in poor taste.
Right.
But anyway, Beretta had been working on that for 2.5 years, improved model M5s or model 92s, and had all kinds of tricked out ones with flatter hammers and better this and that and everything. And the government said, we're not going to test them. Refused to even test them. I think the fix is in. Anyway,
You think?
whoever wins the contracts now for firearms, they want to have them pledge to the government that they will not sell to the public. On the face of it, just the civilian version of that type of gun, but you can see where this is going.
Right.
When they go to Smith & Wesson and say, we'll buy your AR-15s if you quit selling guns to civilians, period. And right now, Smith & Wesson would tell them to go pound sand, and Ruger certainly would, but I can see this becoming a really problematic thing. If this is carried on to suppliers of other things.
Right.
Boeing is, if they get the contract, not allowed to sell, whatever they sell. But on the aircraft, it's going to be a little bit different. But on guns, the idea I think we're getting into here is discriminatory bidding, because they're just saying, you just have to agree to this. And
if you want that bid, if you
want the bid, and if you don't agree to it, you don't get the contract, because this voluntary quotes.
Well, there's some lawsuits coming down the pipe from the first manufacturer that loses a bid.
And they also, one of the other proposals is they extend that to all law enforcement contracts, saying that if they get a law enforcement contract for handguns, rifles, shotguns, that they also have to spend a certain amount of that money making smart guns available to the world. And now, of course, we have smart gun, all the issues over smart guns, that smart guns are supposed to be only fired by the person who owns it. It reads your fingerprint or your blood type or your whatever. And for those of you who think immediately that's a great idea, the problem is real combat, getting the gun to work in the real world when there's blood on your finger and your hands are slipping and mud and dirt and grime. And now you've got to do the combination on the butt of your gun or whatever the hell it is that only you know.
Time for that.
It really doesn't work in real life. And that kind of thing gets people killed. But if they then require it, they require the guy to put so much money into smart guns, or they require them to market smart guns.
Right.
When the technology doesn't work. We've already got the problems with the law in New Jersey. If you're not familiar, there was a law in New Jersey passed several years ago that said when smart gun technology exists on a commercial level, within 5 years, all guns have to be equipped with that are sold in New Jersey. And a company in Europe made a smart gun, and some dealer put one out for sale, and that triggered the law. And all these manufacturers, that gun, one, it's a 22, it doesn't work, it's got all these things wrong with it. And New Jersey was claiming because it is for sale in commerce, all guns in New Jersey have to have that same technology, which doesn't actually exist in a working form. That was stalled, apparently, that the guns never really got into commerce. They changed the law where it said the gun has to be available in general commerce and working and, whatever, not just that it has to exist. But that's probably where candidate Christie saved this from.
Yes.
I don't know. Guns didn't become a big issue in the debates this time either, but they will. They're getting there. Anyway, this program from the Metro Industrial Areas Foundation is looking like a real danger to the civilian market in the long run. This is going to and the same organization, by the way, wants, I knew there were two things in here. Anybody who competes in federal contracts would also, their companies would have to put a ban on selling guns to people who are on delay for the 72-hour waiting period. When you go to buy a firearm from a dealer and you go into the background check system, the Brady system, 99% of the time we get yes, no, or 98% of the time we get yes, no. Sometimes we get the dealer is given a delay, which means they can't check the guy's background for some reason. It's not available. He's lived at 14 military bases overseas. They just can't get around who he is at the moment. So they have a 72-hour period where they can still do that. And the current policy with ATF is if the dealer doesn't get an answer at the end of 72 hours, he is free, if he wishes, to go ahead and release the gun. Part of this is these manufacturers will not allow their guns to be released after the 72 hours. If the guy gets a delay, because the FBI cannot tell if he's prohibited, he doesn't get the gun. So you don't have to get a negative answer. You have to get a we don't know answer. Well, that'll make it a lot easier on the FBI.
Sure.
If you're named John Smith, you don't get a gun. You're done because there's 14 felons with your same date of birth and same hair color or whatever. And there you are. Some of these people, through no fault of their own, particularly Hispanics, if you want to see a gun law take guns away from Hispanics,
implement that.
when you're named Manuel Rodriguez, there's 14 other guys with that same name in reverse numbers. You know how you do it. It's, you know, you have your parents' names all mixed in there. And that's nice and traditional, but it's driving the FBI crazy because they can't separate who's who. So you guys are not going to get any guns, period. This will be the get Hispanics out of guns, right? In one fell swoop. I mean, this is so ridiculous that the Second Amendment says you have a right to keep and bear arms. Is there something in there I'm missing where it says, unless the FBI can't figure out who you are?
No, that's not in this.
It's not written on that line.
So if the FBI can't figure out who you are, you can still have a gun.
I absolutely think so.
Well, when the founders were doing this, what was the FBI doing then on background checks?
They weren't.
Oh, we didn't have them.
We didn't have them then.
Okay.
And you know what? And
Yes.
I recommend to anybody that's interested in the Second Amendment read the Heller decision, because it goes into what the Supreme Court feels is the background of the Second Amendment and how it came to be and what the framers meant and the history of it. And it's very good, and it was very well thought out, and it's in very good detail. And they certainly didn't mean to keep somebody from having a gun because you had the same name as 300 other people.
No, and particularly because, as we all know, when the founding fathers wrote this, they had just thrown off an oppressive government.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Second Amendment isn't to protect us from each other. It's to protect us from the government.
Yeah.
That's what it's for, as is free speech and free press and everything else. The whole Bill of Rights is designed to keep us safe from a government that is
Tyranny from your house
Tyranny.
within.
Which is where it's heading again.
which is, yeah. So anyway,
And it's already happened if you live in California or New Jersey.
yeah, yeah. Well, New Jersey's getting better now that Christie's running.
Yeah.
He's like, he likes guns now. Sort of. He'll be out here. He may come in here and punch me in the nose over that one day, but anyway, we're about done. This is just an interesting thing that the government is never giving up getting your guns, folks. So if you're not a registered voter, vote. If you don't vote, don't complain. When they come take your guns, just go, it's my fault. I didn't vote. So there goes my guns.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Yeah.
And some of you guys in California are going to be saying that now. So anyway, I wish you a good week. We'll be back next week at 6 o'clock, same time, YouTube and KDWN.com. That goes all around the world, KDWN.com. What's the word I'm looking for? The streamer.
Streaming.
KDWN.com/streamer/. Anywhere in the world. The YouTube show, as you computer guys know, is also all over the world. We looked at the data coming off of YouTube, and we're getting like 10 people watching it on Saturday night.
Nice.
And hundreds looking at it afterwards, because it's a terrible time to have a TV show, a drive time on Saturday night. But anyway, we're here. We'll be back next week with the aforementioned gentleman and lady and gentlemen. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening.